Hey guys, welcome back to Home Theater Gurus. Today we're going to be looking at the new Triad demo room that we've just completed. Really excited to show you this. We got a lot of cool features in this room that you've probably never seen before. So let's quit blabbing and go ahead and check it out. So as many of you know, I design home theaters and I'm also a Triad dealer, and I love using them in designs. So I needed a demo room to show both my designs and the speakers off. So it was kind of a tug of war, but I was able to end up with a room that's 23.5 feet deep, 16.5 feet wide, and we have a 12-foot ceiling in here. All right, so once we had a room size, we had to determine how we were going to frame it. I didn't want to spend a lot of money trying to make it contain the sound with resilient channel and all that stuff, so I went with a much simpler approach that I've used in my previous two home theaters, and that was staggered studs. It works fantastic. And we've got our living room right outside this door, and I needed to be able to have, kids can come in here and listen at moderate levels and not disturb the rest of the house whatsoever. And we have definitely pulled that off. Kids can come in here and listen at, pretty good levels. I mean, levels that are comfortable and sound pretty natural, and you don't even know they're in here as long as the door's shut. So with a staggered stud, you're adding a little bit to the cost. Basically what you're adding is, instead of a standard 2x4 wall, you have a 2x6 bottom and top plate, and then you have double the amount of 2x4 studs, and they stagger. So what's on this, the stud on this side of the room does not touch the studs on the other side. That's a hall and a kitchen over here. So it just keeps everything separated. Mechanically they're isolated. So you can beat on one side of the wall, but you can't hear it on the other. It works really, really well. All right, the next thing we had to think about was, do we want one row? Do I want two rows? In this size room, we could have definitely fit two rows. In my last theater, it was a little bit smaller in this room, and we had two rows in there, and we loved the way it looked. I mean, I really like the way, the different heights and floor changes. I mean, it just makes it look like a theater. But we had one problem, and that was we just didn't use both rows. In that theater, we sat in the back. The front row was supposed to be the kids' row. But the kids wanted a bean bag, and we got, this big 6-foot huge bean bag from Amazon. And that's all they ever used. I mean, the only thing they ever used the front row was for them to rest their heads while they sat on the bean bags. And then they were 9 feet from a 165-inch screen. It just didn't seem to bother them. A screen that adults would hate, they had no problem with it. So we didn't do two rows for that reason. We just didn't use it and didn't think it was worth, the cost, the extra seating and all that mess. Plus, with two rows, you're talking about, often double surrounds, which I had in the old room, dual surrounds, and we wouldn't have to deal with that. So it just simplified things, and I could concentrate on making this one row insanely awesome. But like I said, I do like the different floor heights. And so I did want to bring that into this room. So when you walk in over here, you do step up 6 inches, and it's actually lighted. There's a motion switch on the wall that will sense when you walk into the room. It also senses when you walk around the theater as well, and it lights up the LEDs on the bottom over here where you step back down, and on the ceiling. And we also wrapped the seats. I kind of like the way it looks. I had that in my old theater. I like big steps versus the small steps. I like, it just kind of hugs the seats, and it just, the front of it kind of comes into the seat, like it just flows really nicely. Just looks so much better in my mind than a short step. And being that we're on a concrete slab, this little riser also made it really easy for us to run, our power for our seats. And we also have some 12-2 speaker wire run back here for tactile transducers, butt kickers, whatever you want to call them. I've had those in my last two theaters, and I just love them. Now, we're not using tactile transducers because we need them. We've got dual devastators in here that our neighbors that are a mile down the road could hear if we really wanted them to. I mean, they're just absolutely insane, beastly subwoofers. That's what's going to be going in here. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but we don't need the tactile transducers, but they give you tactile, a response, that tactile feeling at any level. And that's what regular subwoofers can't do. You've got to crank them up to really pressurize the room and to really feel it. With tactile transducers, you get it at all levels. And that's what's so much fun about them. So we've got that in the riser, and then on top of it, to deck our riser, we used an engineered product known as engineered subfloor. So we've got 1.1 inches of engineered subfloor, so we have an extremely dense, that stuff is so freaking heavy. So we've got a really dense solid floor It just worked out great. It looks great. Now, after the framing was complete, it was time for the rough in. So I mounted all my electrical boxes, and I came in with 12-2 in-wall speaker wire for the bed layer and 14-2 for all the Atmos channels up on the ceiling. And then it was time for the insulation in the sound walls. We had spray foam on all the exterior walls, but the sound walls, we used a net and fill system where the contractor came and put netting on the walls, and then he pumps this fiberglass, like a loose fiberglass, into the wall and completely fills it up, and it fills all the little nooks and crannies up. So it's a much better product for sound than something like, you know, the Rockwell products like Safe and Sound or just standard insulation. It's just a whole lot better for this purpose because it's going to feel, or it does feel, everything. Where the other products, you know, there's just no way you can get around all the wires, and especially with the staggered studs, you're just never going to get a complete feel. You're going to have voids and cavities. All right, for electrical, I actually have 3 20-amp circuits run behind the rack. One of them is going to the sub amplifier, which is going to be the SP8000. The second one is going to go to the Tonewinner amps. Those are going to run all the loudspeakers, those 2 amps. And then the third 20-amp circuit feeds the processor, 4K player, you know, the Panasonic, any gaming devices, you know, anything like that, the remotes, all that kind of stuff. We also had some extra 10 gauge wire, which is used for 30 amp circuits. So I went ahead and ran a 120-240 circuit in there. I haven't put the outlet in, but if I ever have a subwoofer amp or something like that that is in for review and I need that kind of power, well, I have it right there. So for the walls, we had columns in the last theater, and this one we wanted something a little more contemporary, just fit the style of the house better. Now, we love the columns that we had in the last one. It really is a great look. Just wanted something a little different. And also the black band that goes around the room, that's where our surrounds and wides are at. And if we ever have to get in there to work on the speakers, or, you know, one fails or something, that's very slight chance something like that would happen. We can easily remove that fabric, get to the speaker, and then we can reinstall the fabric, no big deal. With the columns, you know, and some of the other styles, it's a lot more work. You're having to remove trim, maybe even a column, to be able to get in there. And so for the fabric track, we used Fabric Mate, their system. So we got a link down in the description, so if you want to go check them out, you know, to look at their different tracks they have. I really like the bevel track that I chose. It kind of gives all the seams just a little more character, makes them kind of stand out a little bit. So all the trim in this room, all the baseboard, all of the casing in the doorway here, or the entryway, that's actually plywood that I ripped up and then 45'd the edges just to kind of make it match that bevel that's on the fabric track. It turned out really good, and it was a whole lot cheaper than going out and buying trim. And I didn't want anything that stood out too much. I wanted it nice and kind of a, you know, a clean look, but not standing out. So the trim, or the baseboard's not very tall. Everything's just kind of low profile, just to kind of blend into the walls as much as possible. Of course, after they were cut and fit, I wrapped everything with the same fabric that's on the walls with some spray glue, and worked out really nicely. So one of the cool things we were able to do in here is this ceiling feature up above. So just a quick little lesson on what we're accomplishing up there. Many of you know, if you take an absorption panel and put it on the wall, let's say it absorbs down to 200 Hertz. If you pull it off the wall a couple inches, it's going to absorb a little bit lower. It has to do with the length of the sound wave as it enters the panel, bounces off the boundary behind it, and then back through. You know, however long that distance is dictates how low frequency it absorbs. And what we're really attacking are modal frequencies. If you've been in a room with a lot of bass, we all have, and you know how like the bass is really heavy here, but right here, if you step over, all of a sudden there's a null, there's no bass. You know, that's what we call a null, just a void of bass. And anyway, so we're attacking those frequencies up there. Now we also place the seats to avoid those nulls. We do modal analysis on the room. Anytime I get a client, we start a new room plan, that's one of the first things I do. We have to find out where the seats are going to go based on that modal analysis. So we don't need all these fancy tricks to have great bass. My old room didn't have it. I mean, if you've seen the response, it was just extremely out of this world across all the seats. But in room designs, I never let a space go to waste. If there's anything we can use in that room where we can improve the sound, we're going to do it. So that's what we've done here. We've come 2 foot off the ceiling. So that feature right there starts at the 10-foot point. We've got double 2x12s going across, used as a beam to support the ceiling. And each one of these black panels up there are 8 feet long and 4 feet wide. So that kind of gives you an idea of how big this structure is. It's pretty large. And because bass is always strongest in corners and tri-corners, you know, where the floor and ceiling meet the corners, you know, that's why when you stand in a corner, the bass is always so deep. That's where we can attack it the most. So up in those corners up there, really all along that wall, the bass is really getting hammered. When it comes up through the panel and then reflects back down, we're really absorbing just a ton of bass. And we're also taking care of something called ceiling bounce. We're taking care of that too. So all the panels on the ceiling are absorption except for the center 2 panels right here, half of them, the front half right here, they are actually speaker grill material with nothing behind them, but our Atmos speakers are up there hanging on brackets. We actually have bookshelves up there that match our bed layer perfectly. And so we get just a great sound at the seats. And another thing we have going on up here when we're talking about not wasting space, these corner columns, not only do they house the insanely good Triad Gold LCRs, but we're also using those as bass traps. We have holes cut in the MDF to allow the bass frequencies to get in there and be absorbed. And we also have bass traps back here on these back corners as well. So as you can see, we've already got a lot of bass trapping and things we've talked about that greatly improve the acoustics in this room, but we're not done yet. I haven't showed you the secret weapon. Now the secret weapon is really this wall right here. Now the wall feels solid, you know, it is solid if you touch it, but actually acoustically it's not solid. The bass is allowed to travel right through it to that back wall, which is 5 feet away from it, and then bounce back through. So what happens is we're absorbing extremely low in frequency, so our bass response in this room is just abnormally tight and smooth sounding. It's just fantastic. And we also have our surrounds in the wall, which we'll go over that in a minute, but they're actually right here. So everything's hidden in that wall, but besides the surrounds, it's a solid wall to the touch, which is nice. We actually had a test on one of the earlier videos during construction where we didn't have a door on this opening yet, but we had the acoustics going in, and we had a very loud fan right outside the door, and we walk in here, and as soon as you come across here and get past that wall, with all the acoustics we have in that hallway, it just really knocks the dB level or the sound level down so far that you can open the door, you can enjoy the room, but not have to be locked away in a cave. Okay, so we got this fan on. We're gonna walk in here behind this wall. You're gonna hear the sound drop dramatically. All right, so we lost several dBs of sound. So one other cool thing we have is the projector is actually up there. Again, we have a 12-foot ceiling here. I'm standing on a 6-inch riser. The ceiling is 8.5 feet in this little hallway, the entry. But again, it's not a solid wall. We actually use pegboard wrapped in fabric, and that allows it to stay ventilated. We have our return air is actually on the bottom of that pegboard ceiling. So all of the air through this room is dumped into the front of the room and pulled through. We have another vent that is in our equipment closet. So it actually pulls air through that entire area where the projector's at. So everything stays nice and cool, but the projector's hidden. And so, it works out perfect. We've got little panels where we can slide the panels out of the way to service the projector or, whatever we have to do up there. I do plan on putting a star field in here one day. So we've already wired for it. We've got an outlet for it up there. So we can also use that area for control and just run wires. It makes it just really easy. There's a lot of room up there. But as far as the room itself or the shell, the room is basically a perfect rectangle. So all of that is really part of the same space. Nothing is closed off. We actually have our top rears are right up here behind this fabric. So everything is up there. Like I said, now we've got top front and top rears. There's speakers on brackets hanging there and there. You just can't see them. All right, so let's talk about speakers. So this is my demo room, so I wanted to make sure, I've got to have something that's just going to blow people away when they come demo it. So we have a 9-channel bed layer. All right, so we've got an in wall here, silver sat. We have another silver sat in wall here matching. It's the same drivers as we have up there. And here is our wide. Of course, the exact same drivers as the wide. And the cool thing about that wide is it is perfectly angled for our MLP, the main listening position. So if you're right here, I don't know if you can see it, but it is perfect for this spot. So we're gonna have great sound across the entire seating area from our wide. And it's also going to be matched very well because it's the same driver, so we're not going to have any timbre matching issues. Actually, everything in this room uses these two drivers, you know, including the top front and the top rear. The only thing that's going to be different is we're using the 9 sat on the ceiling and the gold LCR. So it's going to be a nice balanced sound. You know, the timbre matching is going to be on point. Speaking of the 9 sat, I want you to look at this Atmos speaker. It is a huge Atmos speaker, and it's actually on a 45-degree baffle. So this woofer back here is on 45 degrees, and you've got an aimable tweeter, and right there's a little laser. So you actually use that laser. And of course, we're going to have the Devastators from GSG going up front. Now, they offer subwoofer kits. You have to assemble them, but actually they do assemble them for you now. It started off where you had to buy kits, but you can pay extra and they'll put them together, even do, you know, some exotic finishes for you if that's what you want. But as far as the kits go, when you're looking at it from that perspective, for the money, the performance you're getting is hands down, you know, the way to go. You're just not going to touch the level of output and how clean it is anywhere around that price tag. And of course, no room is complete acoustically without the acoustic treatments. If you don't have acoustic treatments, you don't have a great sounding room. It's as simple as that. So we have acoustic treatments in here based on my DIY acoustic treatment plans that, you know, my clients get. Just about every client opts for the DIY plan versus the store-bought, just because it's so much cheaper. But so we've got that in here. The room, you know, it sounds incredible. All right, guys, and next we have the 140-inch diagonal 16:9 Seymour XD screen with masking panels. So I'm gonna throw those masking panels on real quick just to show you. They're magnetic, they go on really quick and easy. The magnets just kind of suck them right into place. All right, and there you go. Now we have a scope screen. And believe it or not, I really wasn't a believer in the masking panels at one time, but even with a projector like the JVCs, they have exceptional blacks. It really does make a huge difference to have masking. I mean, even when you think you've got nice borders, when you throw those masking panels on, the contrast, it just really pops. So I'm really loving those masking panels, even though, like I said, at one time I thought they were kind of a waste of money. I was kind of the guy that was like, you know, the bars on top and bottom don't really bother me. I've got decent blacks, but they're nice. I'm just gonna say they're very nice. I'll put a link down to Seymour's website down in the description. If you go there and you put in the code HTGURU, or if you just call them up and tell them that you want to use that code, you'll save 10% on the screen. Now let's talk about lighting. Now, like I said, this is my third personal theater. I've designed a lot of theaters, but all the clients usually want to know about lighting, what I suggest for lighting. So this is my preference. Me personally, I like to have perimeter lights, so I've got these lights around the perimeter, and honestly, I don't use those much. Those are mainly if I want to vacuum, do, you know, YouTube videos or something like that, I'll have those on. The lights that I primarily use are the task lights. So I have 2 circuits in this room, the perimeter lights and task lights. The task lights are the 2 overhead. Now those task lights, that's what you're going to use if you want to eat in here, or you know, you want to do something where you need some light at the seats while you're using the room. Well, you have to make sure that you don't put them too far forward. If you put them directly overhead, the light's going to hit your cheekbones and it's going to be very distracting. So you need to put those a couple feet behind you so, you know, they light up the seating area, but they're not shining down in your face. All right, so I just turned off the overhead lights so you could see what all the task lights are on. I've got the task lights up here, but I've also got them set up for the hallway. My thinking is, when you hit pause on a movie, if you've got a harmony or something like that, you can set it up so that it automatically will turn the lights on. And so, you know, you hit pause, you get up, you've got some lights, and you've also got lighting right out of the room. Now, we've also got the motion sensors, which turn on the LEDs on the steps and stuff too. And then when you hit play, those lights will dim down to off and the movie starts. And those lights are actually a 2-inch LED dimmable that I found on Amazon. But notice the cone. You see how the cone is kind of controlled? That is very important, especially for your task lights. You've got to have a controlled dispersion, because if it just spews light all out into the room, it's going to wash your screen out. So make sure you get a light with a controlled dispersion so they can be on and the light's not really going to hit the screen. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the equipment. To do that, we're going to walk through the hallway here. So this is how you enter the room. Come up the little step, and then before you actually enter the theater, we've got our rack For the rack, we've got the Legion 42U. I like to have plenty of room in my rack. This rack is not done. I've still got to put some more stuff in it, add my blanks, put some spaces between some of the amp. At the top, we've got a Crown XLS 1500. I've had this amp for years. Now this is going to be replaced by the Speaker Power SP8000. That's going to be pushing the dual Devastators. So that bad boy's going in, the Crown's going to be taken out. Now that Speaker Power amp is rated at 4,000 watts per channel at 2 ohms. And underneath that, we've got the Anthem AVM 70. I love this processor. It sounds absolutely fantastic. Channel separation, I mean, from head to toe, it's just an amazing processor. All right, then underneath that, we've got the Tonewinner 7300s version 2s, 7-channel amps. So we've got 14 channels of amplification for our loudspeakers in here. Great amps. I've already done a review on those. The build quality, especially on the exterior, is unheard of in this price range. Really enjoying these amps. I got to do a review of those coming up very soon. For those, reach out to Amir at Summit Hi-Fi. I'll have a link in the description so you can check those out. And underneath that, we've got the Panasonic, the UB420 4K player. Just a great all-around 4K player. And then underneath that, we got the Xbox One S. Getting a little long in the tooth, but it still works just fine. Not that we have a chance to do much gaming. I actually kind of miss it. We just don't have the time like we used to. And we've got a little small DVD rack in here too. Got that on Amazon for like $30. I can stack another one on top if I need to, but so it fits the space nicely. All the links for everything I'm talking about, everything in this room, there's going to be links in the description for all that stuff if y'all are interested in checking it out. So for the projector, we've got a JVC RS2000, which is the pro version of the NX7, basically the same thing. It is an amazing projector. HDR is fantastic. You know, we've got a 140-inch diagonal 16:9 screen in here, and it lights it up just fine with the Seymour XD material, which has got a pretty high gain, right around a 1. So just a really bright image. Like I said, HDR is just fantastic to watch in this room. It's you're not straining to see the detail, you know, in shadows. It brings everything out so well. It's just a great projector. And that brings us to where we're going to spend all of our time when we're in this theater, and that's the seats. In here, we've got the Valencia Tuscany seats, and this is of course, a love seat configuration for the middle. So 4-seater with a love. But when you sit in these seats, I mean, you feel like you're riding in a Cadillac. The leather is so soft. The stitching is immaculate. They're just extremely nice seats, and they feel really solid. Power motors and everything work really well. We've got, like I said, links are in the description. So we still have a few things to do in this room. I still got to put a door handle on my door going into my equipment closet, but I mean, I'm not too worried about that. We still have to put concrete slats. I'm going to put those on the black sections to kind of transition the gray to the blue, kind of like this here. So I still have to do that. We're just, at this point, we're so tired, you know, with the house. We've been building the house for 18 months, been working on this thing. So now we're at a point where we're done. So everything's kind of on hold. We're just using it as is. But honestly, I love the room. We all love the room just like it is. Just a few little things we want to do to it. That, you know, the slats, the tactile transducers, the butt kickers, whatever you want to call them. Got to get those in, get the Devastators in. But other than that, this room is 100% useful, and we have been using the fire out of it. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. You know, this is a little bit different. We kind of went through some of the reasoning behind some of the things that we did in this room and why. And that's kind of what we do on this channel. If you're not already a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe now. Hit that notification bell to let you know when we have new videos coming out. Because we do videos that kind of help people set their systems up properly. And so you get more performance. You're basically getting the performance you paid for, because a lot of people just there's issues with their setup or things they don't know. So there's just a lot of good information on this channel. So, and if you want to help support the channel, use the links down in the description, whether you're ordering seats or you're ordering anything. You know, some of the stuff in this room, you know, like the lights, you know, they're not expensive. Just all that stuff in there. They're affiliate links, so it helps the channel out. That's going to be it for this one, guys. I'll see y'all next time.